The film begins with a young man named Ray receiving an official notice congratulating him on being selected to participate in a deadly competition called The Long Walk. The whole country is eagerly awaiting this event, which is televised live, and the reward for the last survivor is not only money but also fame, glory and a single wish that can change fate. Ray is taken to the gathering place by his mother, Ginny. During the trip, the bleak reality of the world gradually becomes clear. Many years ago, a great war devastated the country, leaving cities in ruins and families in poverty. For many, the long walk is the only chance to escape misery, but each year only 50 young men are selected or can voluntarily register. Ray's mother, fearful of losing her son, begs him to give up. However, Ray firmly refuses, saying that he is forced to go all the way. When they arrived, she hugged him in tears, and Ray promised to return before leaving. Soon, Ray met another participant named Peter McRises. The two became fast friends and joined the group of walkers, including Hank, Arthur, Stebbins, and the youngest, Curly. Soon, the man behind the whole thing arrived. He was known only as the Colonel. He stepped forward, calling out the names of each participant. Each person stepped out of line, received a metal tag, and returned to their positions. When all 50 people were present, the Colonel took a few minutes to talk to them. He reminded them that the country had never really recovered from the war. The towns were in ruins, industry was exhausted, and people were disoriented, but each year the long walk brought excitement, renewed spirit, and a sense of order to society. The real disease of the nation, he said, was not poverty, but laziness. So the race exists to remind people that discipline and endurance are the keys to survival. When the speech is over, the Colonel begins to read out the rules. Each participant must maintain a speed of no less than 3 miles per hour. If anyone slows down, they get a warning. A second time is another warning. But a third time, they are in real trouble. And if they fail again, they are permanently eliminated from the race. There is no finish line, no stopping point. Only one person can survive. With that, the Colonel raises his pistol and pulls the trigger. The bullet rings through the air, officially starting the long walk. 50 men begin to walk. They are followed by trucks full of armed soldiers. Ray remarks that the surroundings look bleak and desolate. But another contestant named Barkovich replies that the Colonel does not allow crowds in the early stages. Unless people lived along the route, they were allowed to watch from a distance. But cameras were everywhere, recording every step for live television coverage across the country. About 7 miles into the journey, the contestants began to talk about the prize. Arthur admitted that his only motivation was money, but Ray countered that wealth wasn't the only thing worth fighting for. Soon another contestant appeared, Harkness, holding a small notebook. He carefully jotted down each person's name and number, explaining that he was writing a book about the long walk. If he survived, it would make him rich and famous. But Peter just laughed and said that if Harkness really won, he wouldn't need the book to make him rich. Meanwhile, Curly, the youngest of the group, began to stagger, pain shooting up his legs, making it hard for him to stand. Ray quickly grabbed his hand to keep his balance, and Peter encouraged him, but the pain was so unbearable that Curly collapsed to the ground. After 3 warnings, Curly still couldn't get up. A soldier stepped forward and coldly shot Curly. The sight terrified Ray so much that he slowed down, immediately being warned by the soldiers. Before things got worse, Peter pulled him forward. Soon after, the Colonel announced the death of the unfortunate boy and ordered everyone to continue walking because this was only the beginning. There were more deaths ahead. After walking a long distance, the group reached the 17-mile mark. Ray admitted that he was exhausted and wasn't sure how much longer he could last. But Peter advised him not to think about the end, just focus on going step by step, moment by moment. As time passed, Ray, Peter, Hank and Arthur gradually became close, forming a bond between them. But just when everything seemed to be okay, the heat and extreme fatigue caused contestant number 1 to collapse. His body jerked violently in the middle of the road. Some people showed concern, but Barkovich laughed and mocked his pain. The soldiers gave warnings, and when the boy failed to recover, shots rang out, ending the next life. What sent shivers down everyone's spine was Barkovich's celebratory tone, saying that they should be happy because each death increased their chances of victory. When the group reached the 25-mile mark, Barkovich turned his attention to a boy named Rank. He initially mocked the boy's name, then crossed the line by insulting Rank's mother. Rank, unable to contain himself, went berserk, charged at him, but missed and fell to the ground. People shouted for him to get up, but his body no longer obeyed. Bullets rang out, and Rank fell dead before their eyes. The sight angered Ray and Peter, who accused Barkovich of murder. But he just laughed maniacally, insisting that he had not touched him. Shortly after, another contestant slowed down to relieve himself, and the soldiers immediately warned him. And when he could no longer continue, they fired, and he fell in disgrace, his urine still flowing under everyone's eyes. Night fell, and the group of young men continued to walk with willpower. Ray began to drift off. Even seeing his mother, Ginny, Peter quickly shook him awake, reminding him to stay focused. Ray confessed how much he missed his mother, and Peter tried to reassure him that they would see each other again soon. Time passed very slowly, and Ray unconsciously slowed down, and was warned a second time. Not long after, he stumbled again and received a third warning. There was a rule that to clear 3 warnings, he had to walk continuously for 3 hours without making any mistakes. Peter tried to encourage him, but Ray suddenly became angry, accusing Peter of only pretending to care and wanting him to fail so he could have a better chance of winning. Soon, the group faced a steep slope. Many of the contestants slowed down and were immediately executed. Jay climbed with all his might but almost gave up halfway. That's when Peter ran up and grabbed his shoulder, urgently telling him not to stop. Ray emotionally apologized for his earlier outburst, saying he didn't mean to. Peter just smiled and told him not to worry and helped Ray catch his breath. The next day, the group had covered over 59 miles. Ray kept asking Peter to talk to him to keep his mind clear. He confessed that his goal wasn't just to survive, but that he believed he was born to fulfill a greater purpose. By 67 miles, Hank was almost out of breath. His steps were shaky and weak, and Peter tried to ask him what was wrong, but Hank only responded with irritability before staggering on. Meanwhile, Harkness was even worse. His dislocated ankle made maintaining his pace incredibly difficult. He was warned for slowing down. Ray tried to comfort him, but Harkness's body betrayed him. When the warning ended, the soldiers opened fire without hesitation. Harkness's death left Ray and Peter speechless, but Barkovich sarcastically suggested they compose a poem or song in memory of their deceased friend. As the group reached the 100-mile mark, the colonel appeared, congratulating them on their survival. But their pride was quickly cut short when a desperate young man broke free from the ranks. Running toward a nearby building hoping to escape, gunshots rang out, and he fell before reaching the door. At the 103-mile mark, the survivors began discussing their wishes if they won. Arthur said he would ask for a spaceship to fly to the moon. Hank joked that he only wanted to invite a naked girl. Peter laughed, saying he wished there could be 2 winners instead of 1. When it was Ray's turn, he said in a low voice that he wanted to change the entire system. The others immediately objected, saying that wishes couldn't change the nation. Rage surged through them, and the group began shouting and cursing the colonel and the entire long walk. That night, a heavy rain poured down, and Ray could barely keep his eyes open, snatching a few moments of sleep while still trying to keep going. By the 3rd day, they had covered 144 miles. Everyone was in terrible shape. In a rare moment of quiet, Ray confided in Peter, telling him about his past. His father had taught him philosophy, music, and many other subjects banned by the government. The government considered it treason, and one day the colonel had personally confronted his father, demanding that he swear allegiance to the state and abandon the banned teachings. His father refused and was immediately executed. Ray quietly confessed that his real reason for joining the long walk wasn't for glory or money, but to kill the colonel to avenge his father. If he won, he would ask for a gun as a reward to end the very man who had taken his father's life. As the group reached the 170-mile mark, the cruelty of the competition intensified. One man, completely exhausted, staggered toward the soldiers and begged for help. In response, they coldly subdued him with rifle butts and crushed his body under a tank. Another contestant lost his mind. He tore off his clothes and walked naked in the opposite direction, and the soldiers immediately opened fire without hesitation. That night, after crossing the 201-mile mark, Stebbins approached Ray with a grim expression, saying Hank was about to collapse. Ray rushed to encourage him, but Hank silently turned and calmly walked toward the soldiers. Gunshots rang out, and Hank fell. However, Hank wasn't dead yet. Arthur broke through the ranks and rushed to his friend's side. The soldiers immediately shouted warnings. Fortunately, Ray managed to reach him, holding him back while shouting. Hank was gone. The next day, they had covered 209 miles. Now only 6 survived: Jay, Peter, Barkovich, Stebbins, Arthur, and Parker. Realizing Hank was the only one with a wife waiting at home, the group agreed that whoever won would send a portion of the prize money to her. No one asked for or paid any attention to Barkovich, leaving him feeling isolated. This feeling of abandonment made Barkovich unstable. He approached Ray, confessing that he was haunted by Rank's death. He apologized and begged to be accepted into the group. Ray agreed, but soon after, Barkovich began behaving strangely. His mind was breaking down. In a moment of madness, Barkovich lunged forward, pulled out a fork, and stabbed himself in the neck. Blood gushed out, and the soldiers quickly finished him off. The remaining men were speechless. Unable to speak, they could only continue walking. That night, utterly exhausted, the remaining group sang together to dispel their weariness and continue walking in the darkness. By the 5th day, they had traveled 278 miles. The road now led through the town where Ray's mother lived. Parker said Ray was lucky to see his mother again, but Peter shook his head slightly, saying it was more of a curse than a blessing. At the 286-mile mark, they finally arrived at Ray's hometown. One of his shoes was torn. Arthur advised him to take both shoes off, warning that walking with one shoe on the wrong side would exhaust him more quickly. Then, amidst the crowd, Ray spotted his mother. Initially, he only waved from afar, but unable to restrain himself, he ran towards her, begging for a hug. This reckless act caused the soldiers to repeatedly warn him, and his mother, in a panic, begged her son to leave before they opened fire. At that moment, Peter pulled Ray back into the ranks, forcing him to continue walking, saving him from certain death. Afterward, Peter finally opened up and recounted his painful past. He said he had walked almost his entire life. Since his parents died in the war, he was adopted by his uncle, but he was later subjected to beatings. Then his uncle died, leaving him alone. Peter wandered the streets with other street kids, surviving by stealing and fighting. Once, during a fight, another boy slashed him with a knife, leaving a long scar when he woke up in the hospital. Instead of resentment, Peter blamed himself. From that day on, he realized that no matter how deep the darkness, he would always find a way to see the light. Peter said that if he won, he would use the prize money to help orphans like himself. When they reached 306 miles, Stebbins suggested that no one help each other anymore. Everyone agreed, though they felt a chill in their hearts. Soon after, Arthur's nose started bleeding profusely, and suddenly Parker went mad, snatched a gun from a soldier, shot him dead on the spot, then did something unimaginable. He shot himself, leaving the group in utter terror. That night, Arthur's nose bled even more. He knew he couldn't survive. It was a sign of hemorrhage. He gave them a pendant, asking if anyone survived to give it to his grandmother. He also begged them not to return when he was executed. Although Ray and Peter tried to pull him forward, Arthur resolutely stopped, his body collapsing, and the gunshot ended the life of his companion. As night fell, they had traveled 326 miles. Now only Ray, Peter, and Stebbins walked across the bridge under the cold gaze of the colonel. Ray couldn't control himself and shouted curses at him. The colonel only smiled, saying that this very anger was the instinct of a victor that he had always been searching for. It was then that Stebbins revealed the truth. He was the colonel's illegitimate son. He said his only wish was to live in his father's house. But his body could no longer withstand it. He looked at Ray and Peter and said that walking alongside them was the greatest honor of his life. Stebbins wished them good luck and then stopped, silently letting the bullets finish his fate. Now only the two of them remained, the heavy rain pouring down incessantly as they walked side by side down the misty road. Peter confessed that as a child he had been utterly terrified of death. But after witnessing so many young men fall, he realized that death was the only certainty in life. Reaching the 331-mile mark, they entered a town where a crowd cheered wildly, eagerly waiting to see who would be the last survivor. Peter suddenly stopped, turned to Ray, and said that he wanted to give up so that Ray could win and return to his mother. But Ray shook his head, pleading with him to keep going, promising that they would walk to the end together. Peter nodded, taking a few more steps without realizing that Ray had stopped behind him. With 3 warning shots ready, the gun immediately fired. The body slumped, bullets lodged in his throat, and the colonel himself fired the final shot, ending the young man's life. When Peter realized what had happened, he collapsed, crying out in despair, while the crowd cheered wildly in celebration of the winner. The colonel approached, a cold smile on his face, congratulating him on becoming the winner of the long walk. Then he asked, "What is your wish?" Peter tried to remain calm and said he wanted a gun to pass down to his descendants as a symbol. The soldiers hesitated, but the colonel gestured for them to give it to Peter because this man wouldn't harm anyone. As soon as Peter took the gun, he pointed it directly at the colonel. The colonel turned pale, trying to compromise and persuade him not to waste his victory. But Peter only replied, "This is for Ray." The gunshot rang out, The colonel's gun fell, and blood mingled with the torrential rain. The film concludes with Peter dropping his gun and silently walking down the gray. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.